Hey everyone, this is Olay from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS Podcast. LYS free student mentoring here Sunday. I am here. My name is Olay Sharanki. I'm here with Festus Samoye and Jamar Crawford. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing today? How are you guys doing?
Good, man. I'm good. I thought you was going to break out into, what's that dude's name? Kevin Hart, Kevin Hart type of way. Like,
what did Kevin Hart do?
No, you know how he kind of talks like this when he, you know what I'm saying, in his jokes like this.
So here's that.
Oh, man. I'm
so
good.
True.
I'm good. Crawford, thanks for joining us again, man.
Absolutely, man.
Thank you guys for having me.
Most definitely.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. Absolutely, man.
So,
always good having. Oh, go ahead, Festus. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say always good having Crawford, and yeah, let's hop right into this thing.
All righty, folks. As always, there are a couple of ways you can get in contact with us and the things that we share. The first thing you can do is you can go on Instagram and you can go to that search bar and you can type in LYS students. You can also type in BNoDo _LYS, or you can just type in Laddering Your Success in the search bar and our profile should come up there. So you can definitely do that there. If you are on the Facebooks, you can type in Laddering Your Success in Facebook, and same thing, you can get access to all of our content whenever we have our mentor calls, whenever we are at live events. We're going to be talking about where we went to yesterday, whenever we have something new, exciting, fun for our teaching app. If you want to get in contact with us because you want us to come talk to your students at your school or at your church or with your youths, that is where you can find us. You can find us on Facebook. Just type in Laddering Your Success. On YouTube, same thing. If you type in Laddering Your Success and you subscribe to us, you'll get access to a lot of our videos, a lot of early interviews that Festus did with some people that he was able to get college scholarships, and some people who were able to also finance their college education on the low, by getting access to grants, scholarships, and a lot of things that we don't know or understand or are given access to or opportunities to. Okay. LYS BNoDo on TikTok. We are working on getting lots of exciting content out there for everyone to engage and to watch and to learn new things about. So please look out for that on TikTok, LYS BNoDo. If you want to send us an email, info@ladderingyursuccess.com. This is the same thing, like I said, for Facebook. If you want to get if you would like to reach us to come to your school, to your church, to talk to your youths, if you want more information on the LYS teaching app, that's right, LYS does have a teaching app. You can access it from your phone. You can access it online. What it is they are aligned lesson plans that go over the seven different chapters of Laddering Your Success. We're talking about spiritual, health, vocational, financial, educational, cultural, and social. Those different aspects. First of all, I got to pat myself on the back. I usually forget one of those, so I'm happy that I remembered all 7. But we have a lesson planning app that takes those 7 chapters and creates lessons based off of those different chapters that we have. So it kind of goes deeper into building a more well-rounded student. Right? The term that Festus used yesterday that I really liked was holistic wellness with our students. And Discord, super excited about our Discord that's going to be coming out soon. We just got a couple of things we need to fix on it. Just a couple of things we really need to add to it, and then it should be good to go. It's going to be a platform for anyone who is involved with Laddering Your Success to gain access to resources, people, ideas, assignments, anything to help you out there. Okay. So be on the lookout for the LYS Laddering Your Success Discord channel. And of course, if you love what we're doing, if you love the fact that we've stayed consistent, if you love the fact that every day, every Sunday around this time, you can come in and you can learn one new, exciting, one fun thing, one amazing thing that you did not know the day before, or if you just have been watching us from afar, because I know there's some of you, like we saw with that Tyson, I know you're there. We can see you. The analytics don't lie. We know you're there, but we know we got some people out there who are seeing what we're doing and they love what we're doing. please, we would totally love it if you could give us something, just a little bit, so we can keep this going, so we can fund more of our projects and the things that we're trying to do, so we can spread this message of holistic wellness to our students, right? Okay. Yesterday, we had the wonderful...
I got one more shout out before you begin. Yeah. Shout out to Edu Hustle and Cedric there at Edu Hustle. Everything he's doing, helping educators to find basically careers in ed tech, but then also just kind of find their pathway with this whole new education space. So shout out to them. But yeah, continue, please.
Absolutely. I signed up the other day. I think that's just truly phenomenal. Anytime you got an opportunity to take teachers and educators and help them find their other avenues to use their skills, talents, abilities, it's really, really awesome. So yesterday we had the wonderful honor and opportunity to go to the National Black College Expo here in Houston at NRG Center. Was it Center or Arena? I think it was Center, yes. NRG Center yesterday. And it was really, really fun. We really enjoyed it. We got to meet the founder, Dr. Teresa Price, I think, who started the National Black College Expo. Super, super fun. Lots of colleges and universities, lots of entities and organizations there that were helping and spreading a lot of knowledge. Lots of families. Saw lots of, moms and dads with their kids being forced. The kids were like, I should be on my phone right now. Can't believe I'm actually walking in this place listening to people. But you saw some of them that were like, yes, this is good. I know I need to be here. I know I need to better myself. I need to further my education. That was really cool. And then saw a lot of school buses, because a lot of school districts, a lot of schools were able to bring their students to come in and to partake in that expo there at NRG Center. So really, really enjoyed, and I liked what I saw, what was going on there. Festus, any takeaways from the National Black College Expo? Anything?
Yeah, I definitely think, kind of what you said, one of the things that was really funny was these parents, they dropped off their daughter and they said their daughter was just like, peace out. Like, she didn't even say bye. She was just like, hey, I'm going in here. And they was like, and then we got into a little conversation about like kids at different ages. And I'm like, yeah, I got a 3 and a 4-year-old. And, I can't even use the bathroom, you know what I'm saying? Because somebody's knocking at the door, and they, daddy, you boo-boo. And I'm like, God, leave me alone, And then, they get older. And they was like, man, by the time they about 11, 12, it's like, they don't even know you no more. They just off doing their own thing. And I think it's funny, oftentimes when you hit about 30 and then life really starts hitting you, then you start thinking about your parents and saying, man, they were so good to me. Man, they were so wise. Man, they were so... I just think it's interesting how that all goes full circle. But I also think, overall, a phenomenal event. They brought together a ton of HBCUs and other colleges and universities and presented them to the students. And I think that's huge, because oftentimes students who are like first generation, non-traditional, or just low income, they don't get a chance to go visit these campuses. So it's good to have all those campuses there in one place. I also think it's really interesting, some of those schools were awarding scholarships on the spot, which, we'll talk about that a little bit later, about finance and education and how that really looks and works out. And some of the other things they were offering on the spot acceptance. So I thought those kind of things were really cool, really neat. And so all in all, a really great event. I do think we should broaden the conversation about what does it mean to do after you graduate from high school, like post-secondary, especially for certain communities. I think this is still, this is going over our heads, and we don't really get it as much. But yeah, let's continue the conversation.
Yeah, I had to pull this up because when you said that girl, you giving the story about the girl who just got out the car.
Yeah.
This is what it reminded me of. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen this, but it reminded me of this.
That's funny. I never seen that before, but that's
really?
No, I never seen it before.
Oh man, that girl was ready, man. She said, bite. So have me rolling on that. Okay. All right, so let's get into what we're talking about. Last week we finished our discussion on, I believe was it culture? Yeah, we finished up our conversation on culture, and we shortened it up a little bit because we had some students come in and they had some questions about scholarships and what to do in high school and stuff. And Festus was just going in so hard, and I was like, you know what, this is kind of like a bread and butter thing that we do, and I'm like, yeah, we got to get back on. We got to talk about this a little bit. So I wanted to spend today and maybe next week talking about college financing issues, changes in 2022, and going over a new list of things that students in high school should be doing to get ready for this. Hey, LYS fam, it's Olay once again. These days, many families are busy but want personalized attention. We at Laddering Your Success understand this dilemma and have created a unique approach to help guide you and your child with personal development tools to build a life of purpose. This intimate approach is helpful for those parents that feel the need to have a focused heart-to-heart conversation deciding on the next steps after high school. We provide individual post-secondary planning, virtual customized college and career counseling, and scholarship guidance and planning. Our one-on-one sessions are tailored to each individual student to maximize their potential in the post-secondary realm. With our guidance, your child will be able to make their dreams a reality. Don't wait. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to business on this podcast. So the first thing I want to discuss is what are some of the issues and changes that we are dealing with in 2022, right? Because we know we've heard about things like student loan debt forgiveness. I know a couple of days ago, or maybe a week or two ago, I heard that Joe Biden recently changed the requirements for some of the people to get access to student loan forgiveness. And I know that there are still, millions of people that are dealing with crippling student loan debt. And there's also a lot of changes that we're having right now, because essentially we're living in a time where there is kind of like a new world order, right? That's essentially what we're living through, right? Like a way that the world works, the systems that are in place to gain access to certain things like education, like a job, like a career, to help further your life and to help establish a legacy for those who come after you. And so I just wanted to do a little recap and just discuss what are what's different now in 2022, because there's been such a huge change from like 2019 till now. In the last 2-3 years, like drastic, insane changes that have happened. So I'm going to put my whiteboard up, Festus, and I'm just going to be taking some notes there. And whatever you're seeing right now, we can talk about some of those changes that we're seeing going on right now.
Yeah, man. I think it's almost too many to really get into, right? Mm-hmm. But let me start off, because this when it comes to topics like this, I want to give as practical advice as possible, right? Some people can use. And so I always try to do like a review on like history, because I think that gives us some understanding of like, where did we start and where are we now, And so let's look at kind of how education took place historically, okay? And this is going to sound crazy, but if you rewind, and you rewind before the 1970s, right? Prior to the 1970s, there was not a federal organization that led education. So that means education was really led based off of states and regions, right? And so that had a lot of implications, right? What were some of those implications? One of those major implications from a legal standpoint was Brown versus Board of Education. We all heard this before. And historically, this is where it kind of ended the whole separate but equal clause, right? So if you fast forward, there was Plessy versus Ferguson. That was like, hey, you could do separate but equal, but then fast forward, Brown versus Board of Education, that kind of squashed that. And then you had a federal system come in, right? When that federal system came in, part of that system that came later down the road was student loans, right? For most people who don't understand this, before the whole federal system came in, if you did need to borrow money for college, because college used to be so cheap that you could just pay for it. You could get a summer job and you could pay for it, right? But after student loans came in, and now the federal government started guaranteeing these loans for school, the school started charging more and more and more, because guess what? I have a guaranteed payer now. I have a guaranteed payer source. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now you fast forward a little bit more, and it's still kind of within that time frame, the 1970s to the 1980s. And this is why his history is really important. And again, I'm not going to specific dates. I'm just saying what happened in those general time periods. When we talked about Plessy versus Ferguson, separate but equal, right? Fast forward, you start talking Brown versus Board of Education. What happened was two major sides or themes started to come forward, which we talked about this stuff before on our show podcast, is should blacks go to college, right? And a lot of people don't realize this about the history behind HBCUs. HBCUs were not actually considered typical universities. They were actually considered higher education up to 12th grade for those who are black. And so the first, if my history is correct today, because obviously there's so much going on, but in my mind, was Tuskegee University, founded by, what's this brother's name? Oh man.
Is it Booker T or
Booker T. Washington. And so the idea behind it was to teach etiquette and skilled trades to blacks, so that blacks can then develop themselves and hire themselves out as skilled tradespeople, right? And why is that important? Because if you look historically, blacks were not permitted to get an education, period. You weren't allowed to read, you weren't allowed to write. So they were forced to be dumb. So in this effort of Booker T. Washington, which he has an amazing autobiography or autobiographical document that's out about how he learned to read and write and go to college. Literally, he walked from somewhere in the South, I can't remember, in the South, up to the North, and then he was a custodian at a university. I forgot the name of the university, but basically he was a custodian at night and basically audited the classes during the day. And that's how he got his education. And Booker T. Washington actually wasn't his name at all. So he got the name Washington off of a clock because he worked in a factory and the clock said Washington. That's how he got his name. So anyway, that's wild. But let me stick to the point, okay? Because I'm trying to draw something out here. So you take all of this history, and then in the 70s and the 80s, what happened was, and I'm just talking macro, what's going on? War on drugs, right? And with the war on drugs, you also had another phenomenon that was getting started, which was the basis of the internet, right? In the late 80s, the internet started coming out. So now you have this technological transition happening. You had fathers no longer being in the home in certain communities because of the war on drugs. But then you also had a third component that kind of went along with the internet, which was the deindustrialization of communities. So what happened in the 80s, right? A lot of the shops, a lot of the factories started to leave the United States to go elsewhere. And so these skilled trades that like a person like Booker T was interested in pushing ended up leaving to go to Mexico, to go to China, and so on and so forth. Because a lot of people don't remember this. 40 years ago, China was a third world country. China was in complete poverty, but they focused on education, they focused on manufacturing, And that's what helped give them so much power, right? I'm not going to get into what's going on in China, but I want to kind of just lay the groundwork for some of the discussions that we should be having now, right? And so the groundwork is, should you go to college or not, right? Because that really determines how you go about financing your education, right? And how much education you actually need. Because right now, America is actually facing a shortage on skilled tradesmen, right? So what skilled tradesmen? Electricians, plumbers. What are these people who put together houses? You know, the people who do the wood, carpenters. Yeah, carpenters, all those different types of things. But at the same time, we're seeing a pattern repeat itself that now we're having more, technology come into the mix with Tesla and all these different types of things where they're saying, look, you're not going to need a mechanic because this car is going to be good for 30 years, right? And not only if it's not going to be good for 30 years, we're not even letting people see how to fix the Teslas, right? And different types of things like that. So what does that say for certain communities, right? And so these are things that really need to be in people's minds is, am I going to college just because people say go to college, which is basically what roughly happened in the 80s, right? In order to not come across as racist, a lot of the high schools just started saying everybody needs to go to college in order to combat that whole thing of like, should Blacks go to college or should they not go to college? And so I want to kind of pause right there because we talked about a lot. We said a lot of things. And so I'd love some feedback, some questions from you all or from online so that before I continue.
Well, I have a quick question. Like you said, I know you went over a lot. And, if someone asks a question, their question can trump my question. But you said something led to student loans. What was that down here, right here? Something led to an introduction of student loans, and there was an increase in tuition because of that, right?
So correct. So the Department of Education, the Federal Department of Education was born, and they started guaranteeing student loans. So for example, if you have, and Crawford could probably answer this better than I could, they call them Fed direct loans, right? Which are loans that the government says, hey, let me check that off. This person, this person's okay to this certain amount. And that comes with filling out your FAFSA, right? When you fill out your FAFSA, the federal government says, okay, they say this to the school, we will guarantee this person's loan up to this amount, right? And so typically the school then says, oh, well, look, you were given a loan. And you're talking generally to somebody who doesn't even know what a loan is and probably hadn't handled money in their life, especially that amount of money, depending on the school you're talking about. And so hopefully that answers your question. I don't want to go too far. And Crawford, if I'm messing up, you teach this. So you know what I mean?
No, you're definitely on point. I was just waiting to just give my 2 cents in on what you were talking about, especially when you're saying what you just said, that these students are offered this money and they have no clue what this money means. And so this is why I believe in what you guys are doing, educating people, because this is really, really important. And this is just me speaking from my experience. I was one of those individuals who had no clue what those loans meant or how to read the jargon associated, with those loans. And so made poor decisions and now paying for them later on in life. So I truly believe in what you guys are doing.
Oh, that is much appreciated for real. Because go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say also when you was talking about the history, when you said in the 80s, how to make it seem non-racist or whatever, they just tell everyone go to college. I was definitely a product of that, because just educating myself now on what money is and how to use money to make money and build wealth. At that time, my definition of success. It's like, I just wanted to be successful. And what it was advertised, from high school teachers and everyone, that in order to be successful, you must go to college, right? And that's not necessarily the truth. Yes, you can go to college, but you don't have to. And so now I'm trying to rewire my mind and change my mindset, or have this paradigm shift to where, okay, Crawford, you can find other avenues to make income and to build wealth, which is why I'm in a position I'm in now, because I'm working on my doctoral program, and there's issues going on with that. And so I've been, up to this point, a lifelong student, and my whole drive to get to the next level, okay, get my bachelor's, okay, get my master's, get my doctorate, was because my mindset was stuck on, in order to be able to reach the highest success possible, go for the highest degree, get another degree, right? But in actuality, in the real world of getting jobs, that does not guarantee that. There are people in positions higher than me and don't even have the same amount of knowledge in me, and telling me what to do, when I can do their job better than them because I have the knowledge. But yet and still, that college education or that college degree does not guarantee those positions.
Man, this is getting juicy today. We are going to get into some lemon juice type juiciness, for real. So excellent points. And so, Olay, we're going to have to still whiteboard that thing up. Okay. Well, before you whiteboard that up, you said something earlier about student loan debt and student loan forgiveness. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share a screen real quick. Okay, so let's kind of just talk about student loan forgiveness, because I want people to hear this. If you don't hear nothing else we talk about on this podcast /show/ whatever we're doing today, okay, if you don't hear nothing else, this current student loan forgiveness does not mean there will not be further student loans, okay? Like, a lot of people, I think, are getting that confused, like, oh, student loan debt forgiveness, this is going to be, no. What President Biden did was reach back and say, hey, look, from this point till now, we're going to forgive student loan debt, which is basically till January. And they're only forgiving a certain amount. And I don't want to get into the politics of it all, but I could get into some of the politics. So if you look at this right here at the top, right, one time student debt relief. Okay, they're not forgiving student loan debt from here to beyond. Okay, they're only doing this for a certain short period of time. And there's some reasons why they're doing this. I'm not going to get into all the reasons, but we could, but we go forever. So what does that mean? That means even if you are in this category who's going to get some debt forgiven, right, you still need to figure out how to educate yourself for the remainder of your debt. And I'm going to be very transparent. I'm big on transparency, right? So even though I got $87,000 worth of grants, scholarships, and different types of things like that, I ended up with around, I'm going to say $32,000 worth of student loan debt, which is about the average. Part of the reason why I ended up with any student loan debt, because I went to a private school. I went to a well-to-do private school, and when I started, their tuition was $36,000 a year. When I left 3 years later, it was $43,000 a year. That shows how much the jump goes, right? But yeah, so anyway, so you can go to this page. It's studentaid.gov/manage loans/forgiveness-cancellation. Okay. And let me put that in the chat. This is why we tell people you need to sign up for what we're doing, right? For these free student mentoring sessions on Sundays, because when we're putting this information out there, right, and we're putting stuff in the chat and we're going over stuff, you're not missing out, okay? Because we're showing you, we're not making this up. We're going straight to the horse's mouth to get this information. So there's only certain instances in which they forgive, cancel, or discharge student loan debt. right? And what does that mean? Those three things mean either forgiven, hey, we're not going to count it against you. Cancellation means you still technically owe us, but we're not going to take the payment. And discharge means, hey, we got to let this go, right? Now, what are the difference? Public service loan forgiveness. This is a big one. I've been hearing people getting them coins forgiven off of this because the Biden administration has accelerated public service loan forgiveness. Basically, and this started around 20 years ago that they started offering this, but you had to make, no, this started 12 years ago, but you had to make 120 consistent payments, basically 10 years worth of payments without missing a single payment, working for a qualified full-time employer. So that meant a hospital, some certain school districts, different types of things like that. Basically somebody who's doing public service. And then they will forgive your student loan debt, okay? So I've heard that's been accelerated. Some people who I know personally are like, yo, they've gotten a lot forgiven. So teacher loan forgiveness. So basically, if you're a teacher, right, you can get up to $17,500 forgiven. And I think this is after 5 years for teaching in Title I schools, Title I, Title II schools, right? So basically you work 5 years, you get $17,000 forgiven. That's still a lot of money, right? So then the school closed discharge. Your school went down. These are people who went to like ITT Tech, right? Y'all don't see those commercials no more, right? Right, because ITT Tech was a private for-profit school. And so in the book, Laddering Your Success, we go through these things. We really try to break these things down because you need to know what kind of institution you're going to, right? And so because ITT Tech was kind of proven to be a little bit fraudulent or something like that, technically fraudulent, they said, we're going to, that school closed, so we're going to forgive your debt if you went to that school. So, for example, y'all might have heard recently, 30,000 borrowers' debt was forgiven by the Biden administration. This is what it was under, right? It wasn't that they were going out and finding people and being like, yo, you owe too much. We got you, homie. No, it wasn't like that. They were talking about a program that was already in place, and they were just basically counting the numbers up on the program that was already in place. Basically, when you look under President Obama's administration and President Trump's administration, they were very slow to process any of these student loan debt forgiveness, period, okay? And this is gonna bring up a huge point that you wanna register in your mind, right? This country is ran by laws, but is governed by policies. This country is ran by laws, but governed by policy. So what does that mean? That means a certain law could be in place, i.e. student loan forgiveness, the ability to forgive student loans. But it's based off of the policy of the administration, which laws they're gonna affect and what they're not gonna affect. And that goes from federal all the way down to state, all the way down to local. So you wonder why certain things happen in certain areas, and you're saying, well, isn't that against the law? Or isn't that, what's going on? It's they're choosing to affect a certain policy in that area. This is why you go to California and you can do all the weed you want, and you go to Russia and they lock you up for it. Okay, that's how the world is. Russia has their own laws. You see what I'm saying? And same thing, you take that weed from California, you take that weed from Colorado, you come to Texas. Now, Texas is getting a little bit more lenient on that stuff. They can lock you up for it. It's just a matter of who chooses to enforce what policy based off of their jurisdiction, okay? So I'm not gonna get into that too much. We're gonna keep going down this loan forgiveness here because Olay brought it up. Now, a Perkins loan cancellation or discharge. So they can cancel a certain, and so this is what they're enacting right now, technically. They're saying, hey, these are Perkins loans, right? And this, again, includes teacher cancellation, where they're saying, hey, look, if these Fed loans or these Perkins loans, we're going to go ahead and forgive something that's under their control. But there are private lenders, right? There are private lenders in the student loan game. So then there's total or permanent discharge, disability discharge. Basically, you get cancer. Depending on who you are, the type of job you do, and things like that, they can discharge your student loan debt. So again, we've heard recently, the Biden administration forgives 30,000 people their student loan debt. It was actually under this that they forgave combat veterans' student loan debt, right? And I think Trump did the same thing. It was combat veterans. It wasn't just everybody's student loan debt, right? Okay, so then discharge due to death. Why is this such a big issue? Which, if your parent signs for your student loans and you pass away, your parent could still be on the hook for those student loans. And there are real life examples of this happening. And so this is why they implemented this thing, right? Discharge due to bankruptcy. Student loans are one of the only debts that are unbankruptable, right? You can't just say, hey, I'm bankrupt, and they discharge the student loan debts. It's on a very rare case-by-case basis. You see how it says, however, discharge in bankruptcy is not an automatic process. No, you have to go to them and say, listen, I'm bankrupt, I'm sick, I'm dying. So you literally, this is so rare that literally it says on the website, this is the government website, in rare cases, okay? I don't want to harp on this too much, but I want it to get through people's heads because nobody's talking about this stuff, right? So then borrow defense to repayment. So basically, you could read this here if you're watching, right? You're eligible for discharge of your federal student loans based on borrowed defense to repayment. If you took out student loans to attend school and the school did something or failed to do something related to your loan or educational services that the loan was intended to pay for. The specific requirements to qualify for borrowed defense or repayment discharge vary depending on where you received your loan. So an example is student loans given on your behalf. You went to some college, right? That college, their room and board was totally disgusting. It wasn't up to standard. That might be an issue where you could say, hey, look, man, this school didn't live up to its standard type thing, or they didn't hold up their accreditation, right? That's probably your biggest one where you can argue, right? The school was supposed to be accredited. They did something to lose their accreditation. And some schools do that. They're just not good at doing the paperwork to keep their accreditations up, right? False certification. Unpaid refund. So school didn't give you back your money, or the school falsified documents in order to get a student loan. Why is this important? This is, again, public for-profit institutions do sometimes do fraud. So you got to look at that, right? And then forgery. So somebody forged your information, right? And then parent borrowers. Under certain limited circumstances, do the parent borrowers qualify for forgiveness? Okay. And then it goes into how to apply for forgiveness. Okay. So I wanted to share that real quick to go based off of what Olay was talking about. Olay, you want to bring the whiteboard back up? So let's talk about what is the strategy, the practical strategy to manage and mitigate student loan debt, to be the most prosperous that you could be, right? To build the most amount of wealth that you could build. Olay, can I write on the board? Yeah, let me see. I think I could get a pencil here. Let me get my little pencil out.
You should be able to.
Yeah, let me get my little pencil out and see if I can write on the board. So we went over the Ikigai on last week, right? So now I'm gonna give y'all the be, the know, and the do. Now this is some hot stuff that is fresh off the presses. Man, I don't even think Olay's seen this yet. This is fresh off the presses about how be and know can get you to a point of being successful. So when you think about being, right, we always talk about being, right? It's values, okay, principles. I'm not gonna be able to write that, and character. Character, right? So let's go through that. Values, what you cherish, what you hold dear. Why is it important to you? Principles are maxims, information, knowledge that you can stand on. Character, what wakes you up in the morning? What's your why? What drives you? Between being and knowing, this is where you get into relationships, right? See, because of who I am, I know Olay, and we share some values, some principles, some character. That's where our relationships meet, right? So knowing is what resources are available, and how to use those resources. What and how, right? That's what knowing is. And just like Crawford said earlier, he was going to school, somebody presented a resource to him, but they didn't go into the what of that resource very much. They just went into the how. Hey, fill out this form, you get school paid for. But they didn't go into the what, they didn't go into the substance. And so the thing is, if you have relationships with certain people, they're going to share what they know with you, your being and knowing, and that's going to give a certain level of depth to the what and to the hows of life, right? There's plenty of what's and hows of life. So now the doing is executing with excellence. Executing, I know, Olay's handwriting is so much better than mine. Dang, look at the difference on the board. With executing with excellence. So between knowing and doing, this is where we have career choices. This is where we have career paths, right? So if I know certain things and I know how to do those things, this is where the money comes in, right? I know what I'm doing, whatever that may be. Now, the flip of this is being and doing. This is where your passion and your mission come in. Your personal passion and mission. Golly, right? So if I take my passion, my relationships, my career, what I am by my being, what I know and what I do in the center, I find out what is my LYS purpose, right? My laddering of success purpose. What is the step-by-step process I need for me to be successful, right? Not from what other people tell me what success is. See, this then informs where you go to college or school, whatever school is. So should I go to welding school or should I go to college? Well, a bird in my ear told me that they know how I could get into welding school, and welders make $75,000 a year. Oh, great, that's cool. But the thing they didn't tell you is welders tend to have to travel a lot for work, working in oil and gas. That's where the $75,000 is. See, they didn't tell you that. You see what I'm saying? So this is where you have to build those relationships where they're going to tell you some of the inside information and the inside track. Because yes, you could go get that skill set, you can go get that trade, you go get that job or that level of education, but then now how do I apply it? That comes into deeper and deeper relationships. Just like what Crawford was saying, you got people who don't have the same level of education. They're either grandfathered in, right? Or they know somebody, their cousin, their uncle, whatever's in the district, and they help them get hired or whatever, what have you. And then next thing you know, you're like, why am I working behind this person who knows half as much as I do? Or who cannot affect change at the level that I could affect change. And so this is where these things have to work together. And that's why we always say, hey, look at what your family has been successful at, right? Because if your family has had a history of success in that area, it could make it easier for you to go and be successful. And there's a lot of this kind of jargon running around of like, go be your own person, go be your own boss, which is like American rugged individualism, right? And even when you look at American rugged individualism, that was not built off of people making their own choices in terms of, for example, the concept of go and plant your flag and get your land was really based off of taking land from the Native Americans and giving it to Caucasian Americans. They weren't giving that land to everybody else, right? Just by law. You can go look it up. Go look it up. Okay, look up the state of Missouri, all those different types of things. Even the Louisiana Purchase wasn't a legitimate purchase, but a fully legitimate purpose. I'm not going to get into that history. But anyway, so when you went out there, what did you find? You found that the Native Americans were still kicking butt. Like, hey, this is my land. You didn't pay me. I don't know who you paid, but you didn't pay me. And so this is literally where all these cowboy and Indian movies came from, right? Why am I even bringing this up? Because this is the fight that we're fighting now about jobs, job creation, technology, is that people went and staked their claim based off of knowledge, based off of resources, some of which was given to them, they were almost grandfathered into it. And now it's kind of up to us in our communities to use our knowledge, to use our understanding of how the world works to effectuate change for us that's substantial and really matters, if that makes sense. And I don't want to just get this off into it's a white versus black issue, or it's a I don't even know. America's just a bad place. I don't think America's the worst place in the world. I highly doubt America is even in the top 10 worst places in the world. But I think that there are some major problems that we have to get over. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing. So again, I'm going to pause because we went over a lot, talked about a lot, and I want to get some feedback from you guys on, should we continue, something else we should talk about, how we should kind of tailor this discussion. So I'm all ears.
You want to go ahead, Crawford?
Oh, I just want to say that I love that breakdown using that Venn diagram to be no do. Had I known that, had someone like you guys came in and showed that to me, that would have helped me make a better informed decision. So I appreciate that. I really like that.
That when we get to the campus, we're going to share this with the students. So we're going to break this down with the Ikegai, right? And then we're going to break down some other stuff. So again, it's all trying to be real practical. So thanks for that.
No, absolutely. And I don't even think I've seen this. You're right. I don't think I've seen this before. So this is really, really good. It's basically taking, kind of our methodology and putting it here. So that's really, really awesome. And you mentioned something about how we even came to this idea of, you mentioned the idea of like the Indians and things like that. And I think this is really big for, it reminded me of that, but also reminded me how big it is for our young people. Because, I gave you the example of last week, us going on our field trip, and the young lady who was taking us around was telling us about her degree. So she was an engineering major, but she was also a guide tour at the college, at the university. So she was teaching, and teaching, she was teaching us a lot about the history of the school. And one of the things that you mentioned there was talking to your parents and getting to know your familial history. What was your family successful at in the past? And as soon as she said that she was an engineer, I was like, well, let's LYS this thing. And I just raised my hand and I said, what do your parents do? And she said, oh yeah, well, my dad's an engineer. My dad was an engineer. And I was like, okay, cool. So your dad was an engineer and she is in school to become an engineer. And so that was the first thing that got me, right? And so then I asked, and then she said her mom was a teacher. And I thought like, wow, so her mom was a teacher, but she's out here. She saw her passion in teaching, even though like she has a strong love for, or her passion is in engineering, but she also has a strong love for teaching. So while she's in school to become an engineer, she teaches kids with these tours. And so I had to stop and I had to turn to the kids and I had to say, this is what it's all about, right? But when you look at who we serve first generation, non-traditional minority students. A lot of them don't have access to that parent or parents. So they miss out on a lot of that knowledge, right? That's there. So let's be practical. And if we can't answer it today, no worries, we'll answer it next week. What does that kid do? That kid who has nothing, who has nowhere to find the line, right? To see that line and see what happened before them. Because, I'm always reminded of Antoine Fisher, the very end of Antoine Fisher, when he goes and he finally sees his father's family, his father's side of the family. And it's literally like this whole section of a tree, the whole half of the other family tree that he's meeting for the first time. And it's a very powerful scene in the movie because they're like, hey, I'm your cousin something. I was your dad's brother. I was your dad's cousin. You look just like so-and-so. It's crazy, crazy. And then he goes and he sees like this old maternal figure who I'm assuming is like maybe his grandmother or his great-grandmother. And it's such a powerful scene because she looks at him and they just make eye contact and then she just holds his hand. and they don't say anything. And then she says, okay, let's eat. And so everyone comes in and they eat. And so before he had no access to that side. He had no access to, understandings of things that they were good at, things that they did before in the past, all those other things. So what does that person do? What do you recommend for that person?
So a couple things. I say this for our audience who might even be hearing this for the first time. I say this coming from being that person, right? Both my parents passed away when I was in high school. And this is one of the reasons I founded LYS was because of just the hardship of trying to figure out, sorry, my son's crying, trying to figure out what to do with my life. And so the thing is, again, having lost both my parents, this is really where like mentorship comes in. And what does that mean, right? Because at some point, if you're a driven individual and if you're trying to be engaged with your relatives, depending on if you have siblings, different kinds of things like that, you can reconnect with some family member, right? It might not be great. It might not be grand. It might not be as beautiful as Antoine Fisher, right? That was a really beautiful scene. And I'm not knocking that scene. I think that was really dope. And right. But the thing is, if you notice in that whole piece of that film, which was a great film, I should recommend everybody go watch the film, is he connected with a counselor, right? And that counselor became a mentor / father figure for him. Now again, they're compressing a lot of time in a 2-hour film. But the thing is, there was a point in time where Antoine started to cross the line with the mentor, trying to make him what he could not be, right? And this is the thing I kind of want to get across to every student out there, every person, every young person, even if you're an adult going back to school. When it comes to mentors, when it comes to pastors, when it comes to imams, when it comes to whoever that father figure is, they cannot replace your biological family. As much as we like to be close to them and things like that, and they call us son or daughter or whatever they call us, they cannot replace your biological family. And so as much as you can, try to get to know your biological family, but then at the same time, respect and know that that mentor, whoever they is, mentee, madam, I don't know what you call a woman mentor, I guess she's still a mentor, right, is going to come into play, right? And this is where you want to learn as much from them respectfully as possible. And now, why do I say respectfully? Is because it becomes so easy to blur the lines of, oh, this person is close, especially then. This is the hard part with a lot of families who come from, these hood type situations. You don't have good, healthy boundaries, right? And so everybody's cousin, everybody's uncle, which this leads to being taken advantage of sometimes, right? Because you feel like this person was so close. How could they do this thing, right? But this is where, again, I'm a big advocate of not just having one or two mentors, but being what I call a vicarious liver. So I live in a vicarious way. So I learn from everybody, right? Regardless of if that person is in the same situation as me or not. Because even that homeless person, I could learn something from that homeless person. A lot of people think, oh man, they homeless. What can they teach me? At the very least, they could teach you how not to become homeless, or they could teach you how to survive on the streets. There's at least two things they could teach you, right? What was the mistake that made you become homeless? If there was a mistake, that's if there was a mistake, because some people have mental health issues, and that's a major component to homelessness. And I don't want to get too far into that, right? So does this help answer those questions?
Absolutely. I think that's an awesome answer. I think that's an awesome answer. And I really asked it because I feel like there are a lot of people who just don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And, I feel like it's very easy to get caught in that vicious cycle. I had both my parents. I still got lost. You know what I mean? Like, it's still either or kind of situation. But I think that's awesome. We're going to continue this next week because I wanted to get into what should a freshman do to prepare themselves for college? What should a sophomore, junior, and a senior do to prepare themselves for college? And that may take 2-3 weeks, because that's huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So there's yeah.
Let me just throw on that. We have created resources, online, low-cost resources, right, for people who are making these transitions. So if you are a student and you're like, man, I'm listening to this sounds so dope, but I don't have any resources. We created a free ebook for you. Go to www.ladderingyoursuccess.com/students, www.ladderingyoursuccess.com/students, and just click on for the free ebook. Okay. Now, if you are a parent and you're like, man, this is so deep, so much, so rich, I wish I could get more of it, go to www.ladderingyoursuccess.com/parents. Okay. And we have a wonderful ebook that we put together for you. It is, I think it's like $40, but it's chock full of ways that you can have really rich discussions with your student, with your child, to make sure that they get on the best possible academic path, right? And really just don't just force them, hey, go to college just to go to college. The last thing, if you're a teacher and you're like, man, I would love to have these type of discussions with my students, but man, I'm just so burdened down right now. We got you too. We got the LYS Classroom app. This is the reason why we're doing what we're doing. You can have similar discussions like this, but aligned with the state standards. We're available in Texas, middle schools, 6th through 8th grade, core subjects except for math. And Olay pulled it up right now, so go ahead and take a look at that if you're watching online. But yeah, so here it goes, right? Here it goes. It's available for you. These are complete lesson plans, supplemental learning material that are character-based, social emotional learning in there that teaches this being, knowing, doing methodology to have these rich, dynamic conversations with your kids to help foster relationships and relevancy with your students. Okay. So again, we have a classroom app, www.ladderingyoursuccess.com/teachers to get this app. It's also available for homeschooling parents. Same app. If you're just like, hey, I'm homeschooling this year, I'm trying, hey, look, get the same app, and it's going to give you phenomenal material to go over with your child. Okay. So with that said, I'm turning back over to Olay. I'm complete. That's what they say on Clubhouse, right? I'm complete.
All right. So I also wanted to pull this up here. This is ladderingyoursuccess.com/parents. Empower and support your child throughout their education quest. And if you scroll down here a little bit, you see the LYS Scholarship Guidebook, and you also have the LYS Parents Guidebook. And one more. Festus mentioned ladderingyoursuccess.com/students. Your free ebook. Download your free ebook, 10 things to think about before going to college. Right there. All right. And we also have the scholarship guidebook down there as well. And of course, the Laddering Your Success book. Yeah, the thing that started it all, the granddaddy, as they say. So, folks, for Jamark Crawford, Festus Moye, my name is Olay Sharunki. Remember, there are legitimate reasons to not going to college, but there are no legitimate reasons to not getting an education. Folks, thank you so much for joining us on this Sunday of LYS Free Student Mentoring. We'll be sure to see you next week. Stay easy, stay blessed now.
Oh, you still there? Well, thank you so much for listening to the LYS Podcast.